They called it the Boogeyman. Yeah, that's the way I used to look at them.
Making a movie based on a Stephen King story is such a strange thing because it's both somehow incredibly difficult to do, and yet he seems to be the most commonly adapted author today. I mean, if there's another author who's had his or her work transformed into more movies, tell me, because I don't know of any. And yet, the majority of them I would feel are just not good. My guess, having read a lot of Stephen King over the years, is that, King's characters are very, very internal. And so I feel like it's tough to translate that into a movie where everything is external. Who knows? All right, so first off, full disclosure, I'm going to warn about some spoilers in the movie later on, but I will fully spoil the Boogeyman short story because at this point, the story was written inside of the Night Shift collection of short stories published in 1978, so you've kind of had time to read it. All right, so I'm going to do this a little different than my other reviews. I'm going to give you two separate descriptions. The first description is about a 16-year-old girl named Sadie who recently lost her mother. When her psychiatrist dad takes on an unstable patient named Lester Billings that says that his three children were murdered by a shadow and then hangs himself in the closet, she and her little sister Sawyer begin to experience the same shadow that tracks them wherever they go. It continues to torment them until Sadie is able to track down the family of the hanged man and learn that this thing attaches itself to host families. Then she has to kind of fight it hand-to-hand style in the basement with the help of her dead mother. All right, the second description is about a man named Lester Billings who visits a psychiatrist and tells him that his three young children were murdered by a strange monster in a closet, one after the other. As soon as each child got their own room, they started to complain about something in the closet each time they were found dead in their cribs soon after by him. After actually witnessing the third child being strangled by this monster, Lester didn't know what to do and needed to tell someone, so came to this doctor. The doctor then removes its face, and it's the creature underneath. Now I ask you, do they sound like remotely the same story? Like the first one is the description of this movie, the second one is the original story that this is based on. I mean, you can't see me, but I'm doing the biggest set of air quotes around based on humanly possible. Basically, outside of there's a monster in the closet killing kids and some character names, there is no real connection whatsoever. And listen, with a story as thin as this as a basis, I mean, that means that the movie really had to invent some stuff around it. And that can be fine if the things that they created worked and was good. But it's all just so standard PG-13 jump scare horror movie weak. Like it all just feels so lazy. Now, I don't know much about Rob Savage, and nothing against him and the crew here. I'm sure they worked very hard on this movie. But Savage seems to have got his start doing a lot of horror movie shorts. And that is so fitting here because this movie just feels like a collection of short films stuck together with a loose story and even less of a plot. I mean, with the exception of the ending itself, you could probably rearrange these scenes in just about any order and it wouldn't make a difference. Like they all amount to the same sequence of events. Sawyer or Sadie in a room, a closet or a dark corner is shown, them peering into the darkness, a monster moves, a jump scare, they run and scream, end scene, rinse, repeat. None of it seems to follow any connective logic or escalation. It just keeps happening until it's time for the end of the movie, and the shadow that was so careful to stay hidden the entire movie just abandons everything and goes full bore attack mode for reasons. Maybe it just knows that it's been 90 minutes and it thinks it has to wrap things up. I don't know. Speaking of which, this movie was an hour and 38 minutes long, but good God, it felt so much longer than that. It's hard to be invested in a story when it all feels so kind of scattershot. There's no real progression, like nothing seems to be built on something else, and so there's no flow pulling me through the movie. What I find amazing about movies in general is that I can watch a 3-hour movie, and if done well, I won't bat an eye. But there are 90-minute movies out there that I feel like are an eternity. Now, I won't say that this one has that distinction, but it definitely felt longer than just 108 minutes. All of that said, there really isn't much to talk about on a beat-by-beat basis. Normally, I'd go through the plot of this film more succinctly, but there really just isn't much point. Like, Nothing really goes anywhere or has any emotional weight. It's just scary scenes cobbled together. Nothing seems to make any real sense. They don't really even try. They just slap on a jump scare or a creepy moment and hope you won't think about it too long. And given the final confrontation with the creature at the end of this movie and how the curse-like structure was sort of set up, it feels like it was trying to follow the Smile/It Follows style of horror movie. But although Smile had its flaws, mostly kind of at the end of the movie, at least it felt like it made sense within its world and was building towards something. This never felt like it was building towards anything. I mean, I'll give it this. It looked good. The production was solid, as was the acting out of the kids and of Chris Messina, who is always great. They do keep the creature hidden for most of the movie, which I always appreciate. And when it's revealed, wasn't bad, if not a little puzzling in its overall sort of motivation and somewhat similar design to the one in Smile. And don't get me wrong, there are some decent sequences here, but that's kind of all they feel like, sequences. Nothing really bigger to tie it all together. I'd give this movie a C+. Now I'm going to ask some random spoiler questions about this movie's story that I just didn't get. There will be spoilers from here on. If you know the answer to these questions, let me know in the comments, because I honestly don't know the answer to these. If this thing attached itself to a family, how did Billings get it in the first place? Did he get it from another family, or did he discover it from somewhere else? It hints that it goes after children specifically, but it never mentions why. Later on in the movie, it does go after adults when it suits it, so why does it seem like it's all about the children? Why does this thing have multiple chances to kill someone and then not do it? For a creature that seems to fear the light, why be so coy when you have a scenario where the victim is in the dark and helpless? I mean, in the cold open, it doesn't waste any time killing the toddler. Why then not in the rest of the film? Why doesn't it kill everybody whenever it can? There's a throwaway line that Rita Billings, that it likes to play with its victims. But why? And how does she even know this? If we're borrowing from, say, It, right? Pennywise wants the kids to be afraid because apparently they taste better that way. That was both in the book and in the movie. If this creature just sort of sucks the life out of them, then why do they need to be scared? Also, why hide in a closet? What is it about the closet specifically? It's the closet in the beginning, but then as the movie goes on, the closet doesn't have really anything to do with it. It seems to be able to hide wherever it wants and move around wherever it wants. Why all the candles in the Billings house? Why not use the work lights that are already set up and plugged in downstairs? Candles seem real inefficient to try and keep out the darkness. This thing seems to be whatever it needs to be at any given moment. It attacks who it needs to attack. It gets across town in the blink of an eye when it needs to. It pops up in and out of rooms randomly. It shows up the second a character needs it to. It's all just very convenient. And why can the monster mimic voices? It's never really used or explained. The child in the cold open hears his daddy's voice, but he still loses his mind. So what's the point of the mimicry? What was the deal with the tooth in Sadie's throat? There is this weird dream sequence where it kind of goes inside of her after it had ingested the tooth, which led me to believe that the creature is now inside of Sadie. And so I expected there to be some way that she has to kind of get it out. But then that's never really mentioned or addressed, so why even have it? The sad thing is the answer to all these questions is probably because, it wasn't mentioned in the original story, or because it's just a creepy idea or a set piece. If only that was actually the case, though. But let me know what you think.